very good evening to you, and welcome to a locker room. And it's going to be it's going to be quite a massive locker room tonight. We are going to be on until 7:20, looking at the big games in the championship as well, and also I think this is the first game I've said this, Robbie, on the show. The small matter of looking at the Premiership games because it's been overshadowed by the Championship games this week, and also at 10 o'clock, Robbie and the guys will be um, Robbie and the guys will be back on looking at the Championship games, and of course we'll be back on Sunday after the Glasgow derby. Good evening to Mr. E, whoever Mr. E is, Mr. Egg. I don't know. On YouTube, by the way, that was a joke. Just in case you get offended, because we know that we live in the PC world now, Robbie. Good evening, Independent Live and chat. Yeah, so obviously you can put your comments in the chat. Here they all come. We've got hi from Jenna as well. See Watson on where you watching Facebook as well. So that's good. So get your comments coming in. We're on Facebook, YouTube, X, and Twitch as well. So yeah, we've got a big weekend of football coming up, and we've got it covered for you here on the Locker Room Independent Live, talking about the Premiership and talking about the Championship as well. Robbie, how are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for tonight's action. It's not often we have the small matter of Old Firm on the weekend, and it's not the main talking point on the show.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a big title race in the Championship, so it's going to be interesting to see how that one goes. But there's a lot to talk about in the small matter about 2.5 hours roundabout will be on. So, it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, don't worry. I've got my water here. It's a funny colour water, like enough, Robbie. I don't know if you've ever saw that water before, but yeah. No, I mean, I'll be sober by the end of the show. I'll try to be sober at the end of the show. Yeah, get your comments coming in, and hopefully tonight we'll be joined by. We've got a full house. We've got Dave Smith, we've got Regan Stevens, and we have got our usual St. Johnson fan, Alistair Blair. And I forgot to tell you this, Robbie, as well. So I've never met Alistair before, and I was at an event yesterday at Hampden, and I remember you saying to me before that Alistair was quite tall when you met him. So I'm 6 foot, right? And obviously we've never met either, right? We just know each other from doing shows and stuff like that, right? And actually, actually felt quite intimidated by when I met Alaska. I thought I don't know if you ever saw a Skull Game when Big Innes came down. So no, I was nice to meet Alaska at Hampden Park yesterday. So we were there for the book launch of John Attenborough. We've had him on the show a few weeks ago talking about his journey through 42 football grounds in Scotland as well, and I think he went down to Liverpool as well in a few clubs down south. So yeah, so I met the big man yesterday, and he was a big man actually, and I had on my high heels actually, and to be honest, he was way taller than me then. But no, I don't want to mess with Alice guy. He's quite a big man actually, so he'll be coming up as well. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got interviews, looking ahead to the Championship games as well. So I suppose that the first place that we could kick off is Sunday, the Glasgow derby at 12 o'clock. Rangers against Celtic. And yeah, you're right, Robbie. I mean, this is the first time we've actually done a show, and the game has been overshadowed by by the championship games.
Yeah, it feels a bit strange. Obviously, every Glasgow derby means something to each team. They both want to win the game, of course, but this one just feels a bit less important. Celtic have wrapped the league up. Both teams have nothing left to play for in the league, so of course there's still going to be that matter of both teams wanting to win the game. Of course, every fan wants to beat your rivals every time, but it just feels a little less important than usual.
Yeah, no, exactly, and also, but when you listen to Brendan Rodgers and Barry Ferguson this afternoon, I think like what they said in the press conferences, it's just because the league's over doesn't mean to say that you want to, sorry, I'm actually getting put up by this comment here. Who do you both support? Well, I support Robbie, and Robbie supports me. And I support my left leg, and Robbie supports his right leg. And if you can tell by that answer, Robbie, no, I'm not gonna get it.
I mean, that's fair enough. What I will say is there's very obvious hints all in my
Yeah,
support, so it's not difficult to figure that one out.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yep. He's a St Mirren fan. Well, if you've been watching the show all season, I think I would give it away actually. But thanks for watching on YouTube. He's a St Mirren fan. I see. Yes. By the way, his name's Robbie. You can call him by his first name. I don't think he'll get offended by it. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a kind of interesting game. And as I said, if you listen to Ferguson and Rodgers today, they were talking about there's no meaningless Glasgow derbies that, like it doesn't matter if the league's over or Rangers can't win any cups or, whatever. It's two big teams going at it for 90 minutes.
Yeah, and we've got quite, an interesting set of managers. We've got Rodgers, who, to be honest, unless he managed to catch a bit of his presser, he seemed a bit deflated with some injury news that I'm sure we'll touch on soon. Whereas you look at the other end of the city and you've got Ferguson, who seems quite energetic, quite passionate, quite excited for the game. So to me, it seems like two different camps right now, and I suppose that's only because, again, the injury issues, but also the way the last two games have gone. Rodgers will know that this one's important for the sake of himself and the rest of the team. If they go out and lose a third consecutive Old Firm game in a row, it's not going to be a good look going into next season for Celtic. So Celtic need to make sure they go out and put in a good performance. Saying that, we don't know what the team's going to look like on Sunday on Celtic's side. I know there's been a lot of players missing training sessions, obviously the big Jota news as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, let's get into that team news as well, Robbie. Obviously, starting with Celtic, there was a big. Well, I think the hint was actually last Saturday at the Dundee United game when there was putting clutches, and obviously when Brendan Rodgers said today that he'll be out for this game, nobody was surprised about that. But I think people were surprised about that he's going to be ruled out for 9 months now. That's going to be a big blow to Celtic because obviously you've got the cup final coming up in a few weeks, but also you've got the big Champions League qualifying game as well.
Yeah, this isn't just a short-term injury. This is, I think it was 6 to 9 months, to use his exact quote. This is beating into next season already. He's going to miss the very early stages. We don't know if he's going to miss maybe the first Old Firm. That's how long an injury we're talking here. It's not just, he's going to be out for the rest of the season and be back fit and firing for next. This is going to go into a couple of months into the new season. So for Jota, that's probably a disappointing injury. You did see him celebrating obviously after the game when the players and the manager went to Celtic Park for a bit. But it's a pretty big blow. I think I'm right in saying as well, Alistair Johnson's going to miss Sunday as well through injury. So Rodgers is going to make a few changes. I think it's always difficult to try and predict a team because we don't know at the end of the day. Anything could go wrong tomorrow. We might not know about certain players, obviously. we already know the likes of Sinisalo is going to be playing in goals. This is probably his biggest test so far. We know now Tony Ralston's probably going to go in at right back, and that'll be his biggest test. Will he play Scales, Greg Taylor, Schlupp? There's a lot of team sheet discussion on Celtic's end. A lot of big injury blows as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how that affects their game.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Rangers will throw everything at it. I think it's not been done since the COVID season. I think that if Rangers beat Celtic back-to-back 3 kind of derby games, that's never been done since the kind of the COVID season, or maybe before. Maybe if somebody let us know in the comments chat as well. But yeah, a big blow to Celtic about Jota, but Alistair Johnson as well. But they'll be hoping that they will be back for the Scottish Cup final.
Yeah, I think for what I heard, I think Johnston more likely will be. I don't think that's too much of a serious issue, Roger said, but obviously Jota will be. The interesting one for me is Schmeichel. Now, I was speaking to a friend of mine last night, and we were talking about Schmeichel and Sinisalo, and I sort of brought up a point, if Schmeichel's fit, who do you play in the cup final? And my Celtic friend was very much on the assumption that he wants Sinisalo to play, no matter if Schmeichel's fit or no. And to me, I sort of flung back at him, if Schmeichel's available, I think, I always stick by you play your best players when they're fit. That for me is just something that you should do. And no offence to Sinisalo, he's a great goalkeeper for what we've seen so far. He's shown promise. He's still a young guy as well. He's still got a lot of developing to do. For me, if Schmeichel's fighting, I think you've got to play him in a big game like that because, some Celtic fans and people will look at it and go, oh, it's the small matter Aberdeen. It's not. Aberdeen are a very good team. They've got very good attacking players. We've seen the goal Kevin Nisbet scored at the weekend. So they've got players that can hurt you. So for me, if someone like Schmeichel's available, you've got to put him in.
I think you make a good point there, Robbie, because obviously if a cup final was maybe in 2 weeks, you would say, well, is a major doubt. But because what is it in 4 or 5 games time, I think he's got a good chance. And obviously, a lot of Celtic fans and everybody saw on the TV last week that he was getting a photo at the game and he was joining in the celebration. So I think you've got to. I think you've got to start Schmeichel in the cup final, but in saying that, you might see him back at the game against you guys, St Mirren, because obviously that'll be the last game before the cup final, and I don't think Rodgers would want him just to put him into that game without any kind of games, as it were, behind him. So I think you might see him at the St Mirren game in a few weeks.
Yeah, and I think it depends how Sinisalo gets on as well. If Sinisalo has a really good weekend this weekend and for the next couple of weeks, then you would make the argument why not just play him because he's so high on confidence. He is playing really well. It could go the opposite way though. It could be really poor on Sunday. The one criticism Celtic fans have is in the last couple of games, if you watch them, they're really poor on set pieces. Raskin scored a header in the last one. He was probably the smallest player on the pitch at the point. I think there's been a lot of issues where the goalkeepers come to catch the ball and, maybe clearing that away. So the one thing Celtic fans will be interested in this weekend is how does Sinisalo get on, especially in set pieces, because it is such a high pressure game. He can't mess anything up. If he makes a mistake, that could be his chance gone. So I think we'll see how it goes in the next couple of weeks. But you're right, if Schmeichel wants to play in the cup final, which he will do. First of all, you need to make sure he's available and he's fit. There's no point in playing him if he's got a little knock still kicking about there. So first of all, you need to make sure he's all right. But you're right, he needs to play games. The game against us, I'm sure Rodgers will probably make a few changes knowing that the cup final's on the horizon. So maybe he does put Schmeichel back in just to give him some minutes. Who knows? But I think it's spot on. I think he does need to play some games before the cup final if you want to see him featured in it.
And I suppose, from a Rangers point of view, Robbie, obviously Celtic's got a cup final to look forward to, but I suppose obviously you were a happy boy last week as well, but I think every game from now until the end of the season as a cup final for Rangers, in terms of like, like they've got nothing to play for. The league's won, that they're out the Scottish Cup, but like if Rangers players want to have a future at Ibrox, they need to start perform. And you know, and also I suppose that if you look at the game, this is a cup final as well, because they would want to beat Celtic, and as I said, that'll be the first time for about a few seasons that's happened. So there's a lot Reagan on this game, and obviously Celtic coming to Ibrox as champions that wants to prove to everybody that's why we're champions.
Yeah, I found it interesting, Michael. I was listening to obviously Barry's press conference earlier, and he seemed very upbeat about the players. The classic. I've had good training sessions. We're feeling really good ahead of the game. But one quote that stood out to me was him saying he felt the last couple of results have been really good performances. Now, as a guy who went along to watch Scotland versus Rangers, in my opinion, I don't think Rangers played very well in the game. To be honest, I thought we were pretty unlucky not to get the win. So for me, I think Barry, and I think even the games before that, not talk about European game. If you look at the Aberdeen game, the way that went, I thought that was another poor Rangers performance. So for me, I'd maybe disagree with Barry. I don't think it has been a great Rangers couple of performances. I think they've been really poor, really flat. They've got, for me, they had no idea what to do against us. They were just sort of passing the ball around the back side to side for most of the game. So for me, it's not been a great few performances for Rangers, but this one at the weekend, I think, needs to be.
Yeah, just building up on that, Robbie. I was also watching the press conference this afternoon, and I don't know if any Rangers fans watched it as well. And I would be interested to hear your response. Obviously, he beat you know, I think this is a key quote that I took out his press conference today, and that's what you're talking about, Robbie. He says, "I don't care about performances. I just want 3 points." Now that I know Barry Ferguson's a big Rangers man, and he can get a bit passionate as well. But if if that was Stephen Robertson saying that, I don't think you would be too happy with your manager coming out and saying that.
No, I definitely wouldn't. The one thing that Robinson's always said since he came in the door is I want my players to give 110% and have good performances. That should be your standard, That should be at every single club. So for Barry to say that, it is a bit weird. For him, it's no normal. It's not like him. He usually, I remember saying getting into European games, he wants his players to give everything they've got. So to hear him say that he just wants the 3 points, which look, of course he does. At this point, Barry needs 3 points in these games because he's dropping points everywhere in the league right now. So for Barry, this is crucial that he gets the 3 points. But you also want to see a good performance, And let's be honest, the last two Rangers Celtic games have both been really good performances for Rangers. I think they've really impressed me the last two times I've watched them. So getting into this game, Barry should be demanding another good performance for the players. They should be demanding 110% because you've got to give your all for the badge.
Yeah, I get a gig thing that a bit while we are comment, but Robbie, that a Rangers manager, or any kind of manager or some other manager, Aberdeen manager saying that as well. I know that he's passionate, and I know that he's up for the game, because look, supporters don't really care how they beat Celtic. They just want to beat Celtic. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. If you go back to Philip Kamonski's where he says, well, we had about 20 shots at goal. But Barry Ferguson's the opposite. I think he said, well, I don't care if we have 20 shots at goal. What I do care is if we win 1-0.
Yeah, it almost seems to me like Barry's speaking from a fan's point of view and not for the manager, because if you take Robertson, he should be the one to come out and say, I want my player to, I want us to play good football. I want us to be attacking, be on Celtic. If it was Robinson saying the Rangers' job, I want Rangers to go and attack Celtic, play good stuff, be entertaining, play good football, and don't have a disappointing performance. Whereas to me, it just seems like Barry's speaking as a fan, it is very much that, I just want us to beat them type of attitude, which, yes, you can have that, of course you can, but as a manager, it doesn't matter what level you're at. If you're at junior level, if you're at the very top, you should want your team to do well in every game. That should be your baseline going forward. And to hear Barry say stuff like that is a bit concerning if I was a Rangers fan and I was listening to that anyway. And it's not just this game; it's gonna, if they're playing Dundee United at home, we know how bad the home record's been against other teams in the league. So for me, Barry should want the team to play some good stuff and not just try and scrape results.
Do you think that's why most Rangers fans like Andy on the show as well? I don't want Barry Ferguson to be the permanent manager because I think he's kind of like cross to that kind of like situation. I mean, when you become a manager at Celtic and Rangers, and obviously St Mirren as well, but when you're at that kind of so-called big two in Scotland, you have to have that bit of kind of you need to kind of like sit back sometimes, and I just feel though sometimes when Barry Ferguson opens his mouth, it lets his fan point of view come across instead of his manager.
Yeah, I think they're spot on there, and I think that's one of the reasons. And I think just his inexperience as well. He's no man at particular top level for a long time, and I've seen a few Hearts fans online saying that they wouldn't even take Ferguson at the Hearts job because he's too inexperienced. So I think that sort of maybe tells you where Barry level's at right now. That's not saying he's not a good coach. I think the coaching staff that he's took with him into Rangers has been more than good. They've put off some good results. Obviously, losing out to a very good Athletic Bilbao team. But I think he is just a bit too inexperienced. But I think you're right as well. I think he does maybe speak too much to a fan's point of view. And look, I think that's what Rangers fans maybe could have expected. He is a Rangers guy. He knows the club inside out. He just wants the best for the club. And I can respect that. But that's maybe not what Rangers need at this time. Maybe Rangers need a guy to be fun with the players, fun with the fans, speak the actual truth in the media and don't speak from a fan's point of view, speak like a manager, but be a manager in the dressing room. That's maybe something that fans would maybe say Ferguson's lacking on right now.
Yeah. So what kind of it's going to be quite interesting because obviously Alistair Johnson's out the game, Jota's obviously out as well. For a wee while now, we've kind of talked on the show about what the Celtic team will be, and we could tell you, but I don't think me and Robbie can tell you the team at the moment. But obviously, because there's a lot of injury doubts in the Celtic team as well. But that's the same for Rangers. That's the same for Rangers as well.
Yeah, well, I was, there was another place that posted that apparently Kuhn and Maeda missed training today. I know that they were only doing light training. I think they do that a couple of days before the game, so it's maybe not that big a concern. But if players like that are going to be low in fitness and maybe not available for the game, then that's what I worry for Celtic. What I would say is they need to utilise the players they've got. One thing I noticed with Rangers, particularly last week against us, is their defence is there to be gotten at. I think if you play Adam Eden in a game like this, he can be really clinical up there against, especially Robin Proper. I think that's one player that, I'm sure Ferguson sees something in him. He sees him every day in training, but when you watch him in a game, he's not the greatest centre back in the world, to be honest with you. So I think someone like Eda's there. If you decide to play him, if Rodgers does on Sunday, then he's a player that can go at the Rangers defence and have a go at them because they're there to be got at. So the team sheet's going to be really interesting when it comes out on Sunday. And I suspect there'll probably be a few changes.
Yeah, you mentioned Eda as well. I know a lot of Celtic fans aren't kind of like happy about obviously his performances this season, and also it's Celtic fans say to me, and I see it in social media, 9 million. But to be fair, Robbie, it's not his fault. He's a 9 million player. Obviously, that was up to the two clubs, and obviously the two clubs was involved. But I mean, he could go and just talking kind of like on the park as well. But as you say, that it's a big game for him because obviously, as I keep going back to Robbie, it's a cup final place is up for grabs as well.
Yeah, but I mean, Maeda, look, you're right. It wasn't his decision to go to Celtic for £9 million. What I will say is he's gave them 10 goals in the league. I know he's gave them a few goals in the cup, a few important goals. I remember scored the one against Rangers as well. So, he does delivered some pretty valuable moments. I remember the game, was it away at Villa Park when he scored two in the Champions League. So, he does delivered some big goals. But look, you're right, people I think tend to look at a price tag too much. I've seen it with my own club before. It happens all the time. What I will say is, trusted he's in there for a reason. He's good. We watched him against St Johnstone. He was very good in the cup semi. So for me, you've got to back it. I think he's a really good player. I think he's got a lot, and he's only 24 as well. He's still got a wee bit of developing to do. So I think he could be potentially getting into next season, depending on if Rodgers makes another signing or no. I think he could be Celtic's number 9 at some points, because I genuinely do think he's good enough.
Yeah, I think it would be crucial for Celtic, especially when they go into the Champions League games as well, the qualifying games, as well. So, so where do you think the game will be won and lost on Sunday, Robbie?
I think it's pretty easy to say the midfield and the sort of the especially the Rangers back line as well. We mentioned Ida a couple minutes ago. If he plays through the middle, he can get Rangers defence a lot. But I look at the middle and I look at the last game when Callum McGregor was missing, and I think that was a very influential part of the game. I thought McGregor not being there, then that's no excuse to Celtic. I don't think they were good enough. But for me, McGregor not being in the midfield is a big blow. So for him to be in there, I think that can make a difference. But again, it depends who this Rangers back line is. I think if proper plays, I genuinely think either, or if it's Maeda through the middle, can really get at him, because for me, that's the Rangers' weakness in my opinion.
Dave, how are you? It's been a few weeks.
I know. Very well, thanks, guys. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, good. But we're just talking about the game on Sunday. Obviously, Rangers and Celtic. And we were just talking about the team news as well. What do you make of Jota being out for 9? What do you think of Jota being out, and obviously Alistair Johnson out for this game as well?
Yeah, not good just at all regarding Jota. I think he's a big part in terms of how Celtic play, but I think they've got numerous other replacements that can come in and fill Jota's role. Obviously, I think not just in terms of Jota, I think collectively, I think they need fresh reinforcements for the next season. But I think, Jota, it's disappointing, obviously. Let's be honest, I don't think, this might sound a tad controversial here, but I don't think he was going to hit the twilight like he did in his first spell. But in respect, he was still an important player for Celtic. There's a reason why Brendan Rodgers brought him in. The guy's not a mug. The guy knows what's best for the team. And as much as it's a bitter pill to swallow, there's still good reinforcements. There's James Forrest, there's Arnott Engels, there's albeit I know he's not in this position specifically, but there's Kieran Tierney. Brendan Rodgers will have reinforcements in mind for next season. 9 months, you're looking at him being back, what's his name now? You're looking at him being back about February. So he's effectively going to miss a huge chunk of the season irrespective. So what I think Brendan Rodgers will do is Celtic fans will not like me saying this, but I think he might utilise the loan market, or I think he might utilise the transfer market, albeit it'll have to be a player that is of a similar ability and a similar calibre to Jota. It will be the old adage of better than what they've got. I think as much as this is a bitter pill to swallow for Celtic right this minute in time, Jota's not the focal player that he was under Ange Postecoglou. Under Rodgers, he's a good player, he's a good team player, but he's not a player that you're expecting him to go and play 40, 50 games a season. So in terms of Jota, I think it's a blow, but it's not the be-all and the end-all for Celtic.
Alistair, you'll be watching the game on Sunday. You'll be sick of watching Celtic recently, as well, playing them in the Scottish Cup semi-final in McDermott that week. Obviously, we'll come on to speak about St Johnstone in a wee bit. But what do you make of Sunday's game?
Well, bear in mind I've just got out of a car, so if you can let me assemble my brain cells and try and come up with something.
Sunday's game, did you say, Michael? Sorry.
Yeah.
Something coherent and cogent. What do I make of
it? I presume it was Sunday. Interesting one, because obviously Celtic, as much as it's dead rubber for Celtic, or technically is, or effectively is dead rubber, I think the terminology dead rubber, I think it's relevant. I don't know if you guys agree. I think it is irrelevant because Celtic have a point to prove against Rangers. I think won't, because obviously they've got a Scottish Cup field. Look at this and say to yourself, I think it's an interesting one because both sides will look to go out and win. Rangers will be keen to obviously end the season on a high, even though they've got absolutely nothing to play for. If I'm a Rangers supporter, I'm more concentrating on the here and later rather than the here and now. The here and later, i.e. the proposed takeover, the proposed manager. The management talk has been relatively quiet, probably because of the takeover. And I think it's one of those that nobody's going to care about the result. Obviously, apart from the two teams in Glasgow. If Celtic win 2-0, Celtic fans are delighted. If Rangers win the game 2-0, Rangers fans are delighted. But what does it do for the complexity of the season? Absolutely nothing, because Celtic have won the league and Rangers have finished second. It's bragging rights, and there's nothing else to it. For me, as much as I still think because I don't know if you guys get this perception, but an Old Firm game nowadays isn't like what it was 10 years ago. And don't get me wrong, the game's changed in 10 years. But at the same time as well, in terms of how we are, in terms of the, not hatred, but in terms of how we conduct ourselves in the game and how both teams play in terms of the style of football and the tackles that go in, albeit on a lighter level, it's not the same as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that's why I'm thinking, I think this could be a very, not low profile, because any Glasgow derby is high profile, but I think it could be one of those games that both sides will just be delighted to see the end of and then concentrate on the next game, because for Rangers, they'll be sick of the sight of Celtic after Celtic winning the league. And I think for Celtic, they'll be sick of the sight of Rangers after the fact that obviously Rangers have won, two of the three meetings so far this season. So, or pardon me, the one game itself, two out of the three, sorry. I'm getting mixed up with my maths. They have won 2 out of 3 games against Celtic. I thought they maybe drew one of the games. But there we go. That's enough speaking for me for now.
Alistair, before we move on to talk about the other games this weekend, what do you make of the game on Sunday at Ibrox?
Well, I'm conscious I may be repeating what has already been said, because obviously I didn't hear it. The great ecumenical bun fight between Celtic and Rangers. I think I've been told from games at both ends.
Sorry, was you asking me something there, Michael?
No, Alistair. Yeah.
And I cannot see the fans of either club treating this as anything other than a normal Old Firm derby. They absolutely.
I'll lab it. Sorry. I think in terms of Sunday, I think the most important aspect for Brendan Rodgers' men at this precise moment in time is.
I think we've got a technical issue, Dave. I don't know if you can hear us very well or whatever. Yeah. Alistair, what were you saying? Alistair?
What I was saying is I do not think I don't think either Celtic or Rangers fans, the game may have changed.
I think for Sunday, I think all the attention has to be on the final. I think if Rangers win on Sunday, it's going to be irrelevant, because it's not going to be relevant for Rangers, but it's going to be relevant for Celtic. For Celtic in the sense that they've got an incentive in mind on the 25th of May, I think it is, in terms of winning silverware against Aberdeen. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest game of Celtic season. It's probably the biggest. It sounds ridiculous for me to come out and say this, but it's probably the biggest game Celtic have had in several years. Because let's be honest, there's not been a game against Rangers in several years that you've looked at and said it's defining, it's season defining, it's title defining. There's been no game whatsoever that's had that kind of element to it. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how Sunday goes, but I think the bigger picture for Celtic is the 25th of May. By the way, there has been technical issues, so I'll be back with you guys, and I'll be back with you visitors in about 2 minutes.
So Alistair, I think you can speak now. Or further hold your peace, as they say.
Fourth time lucky, Michael.
yeah. I don't know what was happening there actually, but on in the show. But yeah, Alistair, on you go for the fifth time.
Right. Well, seeing as Dave's not here, I can probably get a word in edgeways. What I was trying to say was that I've been to Old Firm games at both ends. I don't think the fans, they will not be going into this thinking this is a game that doesn't matter, because for them it's the most important game of the season. It's the game they've got to win. And we all know the stuff that goes with it, all the things that are bad about it, of which there's a lot. In terms of the game itself, there's a lot of good things that will also be there, hopefully. Now, I think Rangers will be really up for this. This is a chance for them to actually have 3 victories out of 4 against Celtic. Celtic will not want that to happen. So I actually think you'll find this is actually not too bad a game. The pressure's off to the extent that it's not going to make any difference, but that's kind of been the case for some time anyway. So I really don't think it'll be anything other than a normal Old Firm game with all that entails. And I think you'll find that, depending on how Celtic approach it, would I be surprised if Rangers won? Well, I was surprised the last time because I didn't see that coming at all. Because on the day, Celtic will absolutely marmalise every team in Scotland because they are so much better than everybody else. So if Celtic are not up for it, then I could see Rangers winning. Will they win? Do you know what? This is a very cop-out. I wouldn't also be surprised if it was a draw because, yes, Celtic have got a final. They don't want, if you're going to play in that game, you want to make sure you get through it and get to play in the final. But it's an Old Firm game, so the fans will not let you get away with that up to a point. So I wouldn't be surprised if Rangers won. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw. If Celtic played their form, they'll thrash anybody in the league. So simple as that. That's me sitting on 3 fences at once.
Okay, yep, and you got everything in there before Dave came back in, so well done, Alistair, as well. Brendan Rogers said today, just quickly, he said, the King of game, this is the King of game, it's all about passion, and we have proved that over the season. So I think he was making the point there in a kind of subtle way that they're going to Ibrox as champions. Okay, let's move on to the other games on Saturday. Because Alistair's here, we're going to talk about the Saints game, St Johnstone against Kilmarnock. First of all, Alistair, disappointing last week. So that for part of you still get a wee bit of hope.
Somebody on one of the Facebook groups said that it's very slender. I said it's about as slender as one of Bambi's legs split in two. You're looking at, I'm not sure what the last chance saloon beyond the last chance saloon is basically where they are, right? If it wasn't us, everybody else would look at it and go, yeah, they're down. It's almost certain that we will get relegated. But it's the hope that kills you. You know, you're looking at people sitting with their calculators. I remember, I'm going to go for a wee tangent here, Michael, if you don't mind. I remember many years ago going to visit a client it was the last set of councils in Ayr, and the guy was a Dunfermline fan. And he was supposed to be working, but he was actually working out all the permutations over the last 2 games of the season to see whether his team could get, I can't remember whether it was promoted or relegated. It was one of those two. And that's what fans do. You sit and you look at it and you go, well, if we win and they lose, and then, and if we win the next game, and then if somebody gets sent off, it's quite frankly beyond us now. We've got to win the next 2 games to have any chance. We do that, we're probably start again. We've got to win the next 2 games, and Ross County have got to lose the next 2 games, the second of which is against us. Then you're on the level points with Ross County, probably got a better goal difference, and then you've got Hearts away. Look what the bookies are saying. The bookies are not normally wrong. The bookies can normally buy a new car when the ashtray on the old one's full up. There's a reason for that. I would think most Saints fans know that we're down, but it's the hope that kills you.
It's
now.
It's the Ross County game at home, Alistair, at McDermott Park. Yeah. Well, I suppose like you could say that you would rather like the game being at McDermott Park because you've got a bit of advantage.
Well, yes. I mean, that's interesting on 2 counts, actually, Michael, because you've got, you've got the situation this weekend. If we lose and Ross County win, then game over, right? Mathematically, it's not, but in reality, it is, because you then have to win 3 games in a row. The other thing about it is this, that because of the way the league is structured, and this is something which actually isn't right, and I know you don't want to talk about league reconstruction, but we're playing Ross County the 3rd time this season at home. Now, if we stay up on the back of that, if I was a Ross County fan, I would be absolutely raging. Absolutely raging. It's simply not right. And to show you how not right it is, can you imagine Celtic and Rangers being told that they had to play, oh, by the way, Rangers, you're playing 3 games away at Celtic Park? It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. So there's something fundamentally wrong there. If we, by some miracle, stay up and we beat Ross County at home, as I said, if I was a Ross County fan, I would be very, very annoyed.
Alistair, I'm looking at St Johnstone, right, and obviously, you're not exactly world beaters, and I'm not going to pretend that anybody in the bottom 6 are, but I look at St Johnstone and I look at the fight you guys show, and you might have lost away at Falkirk Park, but for what I heard, you showed some amount of character in the game. I'm looking at your fixtures, and the last away game you've got is Hearts. Apart from that, you're at home in Oireland. But to me, that should be a bit encouraging. To me, we should be able to go and show a bit of fight. I think out of the bottom 6, the team that looks like they can show the most fight right now is St Johnstone. I look at Hearts, I look at Ross County, I look at Dundee, and to me, if St Johnstone are going to have a chance here, I honestly don't see why you can't do it. Away to Tynecastle, I get it. It can be difficult, but this is a Hearts team that haven't scored in the last 4 league games.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for your kind words, Robbie, but the real problem is, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be slightly cynical, my heart really bleeds for the Celtic fans concerned about Jota not playing, right? We have got one fit defender, right? We're playing 2 wingers at fullback, or a wing back as well as a winger. One of them's a young guy. We're playing a central midfielder with no pace at centre back. We've got one fit defender. That is not a recipe for, a good team will take advantage of that. Motherwell did it the weekend. Motherwell took advantage of the fact that the guys who were supposed to be defending are in, midfield forward mode. They don't track back quick enough. The boy's clear, hammers his shot in, gets a deflection off Sprangler, who again doesn't know how to position himself because he's not a centre back, goes in their goal, 2 down. And yeah, we showed shed loads of fight, but we didn't actually make their keeper make a proper save. Because when we brought on Ikpeazu, who is, I suspect the old man of Hoy's got more skill, but he's quite a big unit. And he certainly sort of disrupts things, but he's got to have somebody playing off him. And I don't think any Saints fans I think a lot of Saints fans are not entirely certain that the manager actually knows how to put a team together that's going to take advantage of the players we've got, if you know what I mean. But anyway, we are where we are. I mean, I say thank you for your kind words. And we will not watch the old games. We'll be in rehab or whatever it is, or something like that,
Reagan, how are you?
I'm not bad, Michael. Are you?
Yeah, yep. So what do you make of this game? Do you think it's last chance saloon for St Johnstone on tomorrow against Kilmarnock?
Yeah, but I tend to agree with Alistair. I think St Johnstone are down. I think Alistair's just been realistic. I think St Johnstone have left it too late. I thought if they potentially got a win against Motherwell last week, after going ahead so early, they may have had a chance, but I think they've left it a little bit too late. And I think in terms of, I think somebody's got me on loudspeaker there, but anyway, I think in terms of Derek, I think they'll just be looking to try and get back-to-back wins this season, because it's not been very often that Kilmarnock have done that. So I think in terms of this game, I think it'll be intriguing, but I think St Johnstone need to win, but I don't see them surviving, unfortunately, Alistair.
Listen, sorry.
No, sorry, I was just going to ask you then, and look, I agree. I think it is most likely game. Well, I think it would take a miracle, as you said, but I'm looking at the Championship, and I don't obviously as a fan, the last thing you want your team is to get relegated ever, of course. But I'm looking at the Championship under Valakari and the football that he's been playing. If he can get the right bodies in, I think that could be a really exciting season in the Championship.
It could. I mean, to go back to Regan's point about being too late, what was too late was getting rid of Levine. He should have gone in the summer. In fact, he should have gone in March, but that was by the by. But he should definitely gone in the summer. And I know some people think I may have a beam of bonnet about this, but I'm not the only one. Because he brought in a lot of the guys who, quite frankly, are responsible for us being where we are. Looking ahead, is the Championship that good? Really? Because you're looking at Falkirk, are good. Livingston are not too bad. Ayr on their day are good. Wraith Rovers not too bad. Thistle not too bad. But I think Falkirk aside, none of those teams, if they come up, are going to actually set the heather on fire. They're not a Dundee United with the money which Dundee United had. Dundee United went down, spent big, and as a result were millions of pounds in the red. I think that's still the case. We haven't got that kind of mentality with our owner, but he's got a bit of money. So I think you're right about it, Robbie. It's a lot of people saying go down, take advantage of the opportunity to start again, but we're losing at least half our team. So you're really not sure what's coming in, and this is a problem with Scottish football. There's so many clubs on loan, players on loan. Listen, in the event that Ross County went down instead of us, they'd have the same kind of problem. All these teams have got people who are not Scots, they're not signed up long term, and it's even creeping in the Championship. So when you do go down, all of a sudden you lose the goalkeeper, you lose probably another 5 players. Where do you start? And that again just contributes to we can wait 3 years, possibly the league reconstruction, but we may well find that there's a totally different Championship in a couple of years' time. So all these things are imponderables. We're going to find out next week what happens, possibly find out next week what happens in terms of reconstruction. But there's an awful lot of unknowns, if you see what I mean, Robbie. I'm not sure. While I'm grateful for your optimism, a lot of Saints fans think the same way. I'm not quite so convinced.
But I was just going to say, I think, I don't think it would be easy for St Johnstone to bounce straight back up, and I get there's a lot of factors in getting relegated. But to me, I'm excited in general. I really do think putting us at Johnstone into a Championship, which, look, I know this season there's been issues off the pitch, and I get that, but it really seems to me like every game's going to be a good one in the Championship going forward. I think I even look at the final day, and I wish Hamilton, obviously, what happened with the point, but I wish Hamilton were still in the race, because it would have made it even closer to me. St Johnstone get in there. Look, I just want to see managers play the best stuff they can, and obviously St Johnstone fans, everybody wants to be in the top flight, of course. But to me, putting St Johnstone into a Championship where they can be free flowing and they don't need to worry about playing Celtic and Rangers or at Hearts or at Tynecastle or Pittodrie or anywhere like that, to me that makes a good advert for Scottish football, and that's why I'm so disappointed with the Championship TV deal. And obviously I know we've got 2 games on the night, but in general, just having that Championship showing off a bit more, having the likes of St Johnstone in it with Valakari, having Scott Brown, having a Falkirk John McGlynn team that's fast flowing football, to me it really could be a big booster for Scottish football. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think Falkirk will come up. So that will be different. A lot will depend on this reconstruction, because that might obviously change the shape of the league. In which case, might be easier, might be more difficult.
Just before we move on, just got a quick word on Kilmarnock tomorrow. Dave, obviously the ex-Aberdeen manager, Derek McInnes, but have you been very surprised at Kilmarnock this season, especially finishing in the bottom six?
No, obviously what happened last season was excellent for everybody associated with Kilmarnock Football Club, but that season was always going to be a tough ask. I don't think McInnes got exactly a good hand in terms of his transfer dealings. I think he had the opportunity to really go and add to what he had. The fact that Daniel Armstrong has signalled his intention to leave at the end of the season tells his own story in that regard. I think for Kilmarnock, I think they're always they're never a yo-yo relegation club, but they're always a yo-yo club in terms of bottom six, top six. Like there'd be a top six maybe 1 or 2 seasons in a decade, and then there'd be a bottom six club for about a good 6 or 7 years. By the way, apologies if you hear the loud background noises. I think I've got an echo in my house. I've got a new house just for the context of the viewers, but I think for Kilmarnock, yeah. The success story for me has been Bobby Wills, obviously on the verge of going to Swansea, and that would be a great move for Bobby Wills. So, yeah, apart from that, I think they need to be developing in their youth going forward. Come on, I think you've seen the other night how they obviously put aside Dundee. The captain got a good deal, I read yesterday as well, which is great news for everybody associated. But to answer your question, Michael, I'm not surprised because McInnes has a specific way of working. And I think it works at a club like Aberdeen. I don't think it works at a club like Kilmarnock.
Robbie, let's move on to talk about Ross County and Hearts. Before we get to Ross County, this is the first time I think me and Alice and Dave actually has been on since Neil Critzy get the sack last Saturday night, and I know that you had Graham on the show last Sunday. I knew it was coming, but I don't know about you guys, but were you surprised of the timing of the sacking? Because obviously there's 4 games left now.
That's for a really critical game for Hearts. I think it was the right decision overall. Keeping Crouchley in the job, and I get it, it's unfair. In my opinion, it is unfair. Crouchley should have at least get a summer window. I get that, but I can see where the Hearts board are coming from. You know, you've got a team there that's so low and confident, can't score in the league, potentially in a relegation fight. And that's mainly why he's been sacked. That is why he's been sacked. It is that case of we need to try and stay up. We don't think Crouchley is going to keep us up because, let's be honest, it wasn't a great Hearts team that he was putting out each week. It seemed really flat, low in confidence, unable to score in any game. So for me, it was the right decision made at the right time. I know Graham was on the show. I think he even thought it was the right time as well. And Graham was one of the guys that I knew backed Crouchley from the beginning when people didn't. You know, he was right behind them. But I think it was the right time. The interesting part is who they're going to appoint next, obviously.
Alaska, were you surprised of the timing of the sacking?
Not really, because in the modern football world, that's what happens. Whether that's right or wrong is a different question. I feel for him a bit because a few months ago on the show, I was saying I could see Hearts finishing third. And I knew a lot of Hearts fans were feeling the same because they were on the way up. They were looking good. They've obviously got good players. They brought in far too many last season. They had this shed loads of players. And I went to, as a guest to a Hearts shareholder dinner. And they had Naismith was still the manager then, you know, and he was being quizzed and he was getting an appallingly hard time by some of the guys. I mean, it was bang out of order how abusive they were to him, you know, and you could see he was struggling to contain his anger. So he got the sack, and then they bring in Critchley, who, as I said, it looked at one stage they were actually going to be comfortably in the top 6. I think what makes it worse than the fact that Hibs are doing so well, because that again makes their fans more annoyed. So that doesn't help. And I think Robbie's right. It's a team that's low in confidence, but it's a team that's got a lot of very good players. A bit like Aberdeen when they went through their rough patch. The players were still there. They just weren't gelling. Now, what difference will that make this? You know, what difference will it make him going? Wait and see, because this is a game which Ross County have got to win. Hearts have got to win, but Ross County more, I think, than Hearts, because I think Hearts have got enough to, they've got enough points in the bag. They'll get a couple of wins from somewhere, probably from us. So I think that will be really, really hard for them. And at home, Ross County are good. So am I surprised? No, because of the way managers get sacked. Tuppence halfpenny nowadays, because people, the sort of echo chamber that social media means that the owners and directors of clubs can't escape from it. They're put under pressure, and a lot of them just give in to that pressure. And sometimes, in fact, not sometimes, more often than not, it will not make a blind bit of difference. I've said this many times on the show. There's only a handful of very good managers. There's a lot of bang average managers, and they by and large circulate. Dell's a good manager. With that, there is absolutely no doubt. I'm not so sure about people like Naismith. You've got these guys who are established who you can look at and they're good, but again, they tend to sort of pass the sell by day. So you've got John Hughes, people like that. Nobody's going to give them a job now, I don't think. So you're then looking where Heart's going to go. So I know I'm going a bit off piste here, Michael, but football's full of fashions, and currently now people are bringing in managers from overseas. Motherwell have done it. We've done it. I can see Hearts going abroad for the next manager.
I know that's what you're saying, Alison. That's a good point that you've made, and to be honest, I think you've done a blog about it on the Scottish Supporters Association website, and about football is not a computer game. Dave, I know that when Neil Clitsy was appointed, Graham says that. Graham says, yep. Just getting a bit of feedback there. Feedback, as I say. But yeah. So when Neil Clitsy got appointed, Graham says, "Look, I don't know the guy, but I'm going to back him to the hilt." But because Tony Bloom got his football analogy kind of statistics as well. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of ruining the game, Dave, a wee bit, because it's like looking at an Aberdeen player on YouTube, and they're never going to show you the bad bits of his game. They're just showing you the goals that he scored, and there'll be a good signing for Aberdeen as well. And I think that's kind of the same for the manager as well. But I mean, I wish clubs would get away with saying, well, yeah, he's got a 50% win record. We'll get him as manager. What do you make of the analytics side of the game, Dave?
Yeah, before I start, if you're not having a party in this new house, the police will be around in 5 minutes' time because it'll be too loud. But there we go. I have no idea where that echo came from, to be honest with you. It's still there, else you could probably hear. But yeah, in terms of Neil Critchley, I remember Andrew McKinley made a point to the press as soon as Critchley was appointed, and it was about how he worked with Jurgen Klopp, Steven Gerrard, who was at Dean Smith maybe, and he's obviously been his own man. And he was working with Klopp and Gerrard. He was obviously no mug. Yes, fair point, Mr. Andrew McKinley. But I would also argue in the same page as well by saying that personalities could be different. Like Neil Critchley's personality was better suited towards English people, not Scottish people. It's two totally different entities altogether. And I think Hearts need to, and it's not just a Hearts issue, I think certain clubs within Scottish football need to stop going down an analytics route. I think we need to start going down the old school route. Now, you look at all 4 teams who have won the league. Celtic have obviously won the Premiership. They were always going to win the, let's be brutally honest, with resources and everything. But Brendan Rodgers, he's not old school, but he's old school in terms of his principles. Championship, potentially Falkirk, potentially Livingston in the ad. But you look at John McGlynn and Martindale, yeah, 2 old school guys in their principled rights. David Gold and Hamilton and Colin Hamilton are both in League One. Young managers, old school and divine rights. Ryan Stacker and Jordan Brown, League 2, Peterhead. Yeah, young managers, but old school and divine rights. And the thing is that I think we're losing personality in our game with managers. There is as the guys have touched upon, bang average and average, whatever have you. But I also think that a lot of these analytics, a lot of these boardrooms are not focusing on personality. Now, some of the managers that have lost jobs do not have a personality, full stop. And who has a personality? Brendan Rodgers has a personality. John McGlynn has a personality. Martindale has a personality. Gordon Hamilton has personalities. Brendan Strachan has personalities. There's a whole host of other managers. McInnes, to a certain extent, has a personality. You only need to go and listen to a podcast elsewhere to listen to McInnes and Tony Docherty, for example, speaking about their 4-hour journey from Hampden 11 years ago and how it was a 5-hour drinking journey. That just goes to show you personality. And I think that's the hidden, I think it's the hidden secret in Scottish football right at this minute in time. And Hearts have been slapped in the face big time because Neil Critchlow does not have a personality. He's a good coaching background. He's got good coaching pedigree, but he doesn't have a personality. And that latter part is what makes or breaks managers in this country.
I think the point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, I was just to say, I know, look, and everybody at Hearts here's, the analytics team, and, it gets them excited, and I get it wanting to go for the, overseas appointment. I really do. I think it can work. I think we've seen it work. Aberdeen done it. Alistair, you mentioned St Johnstone have done it as well. But it also can't work, and I use Philippe Clement as always the big one. Rangers bring him over. It goes horribly wrong now. Yes, Rangers are a bit different than other clubs, but Hearts are also a lot different than other clubs in the league. I honestly, and I was speaking to Graham about this, I get wanting to go for the overseas appointment and the fancy appointment, but what harm is if you bring in a Stephen Robinson, for example, or Derek McInnes, what harm is it going to do to your club? This is a guy that knows the league and knows how to get results at the end of the day. He's not going to play the most attractive stuff, and I get that, but for me, I think, and look, I'm not going to speak for Hearts fans, obviously they can speak for themselves, but for me, I'd rather go for the safer appointment as my manager than try and go overseas. And I know some people would disagree, and that's fine, but to me, I think if I was a Hearts fan, I'd be looking in and going, give me Stephen Robinson, that's a guy that knows the league, knows how to get the wins, and ultimately that's what Hearts fans want. They want success in the league.
Yeah, if I can just one last point on this, maybe, and it's a rhetorical question, and you've got to bear in mind you're not allowed to swear on this show. What do you think Jock Stein and Alex Ferguson would say about all this analytics stuff?
That's
They'd probably say it's a lot of rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they probably would. I think they probably would. I think they'd add some adjectives as well, mind you, but that's why I said you can't swear.
Yeah.
I think that's an overall problem, and I don't think we have, and it beds into the players as well. And obviously, the players touch on Rangers and Celtic. It's an overall issue. I don't think there's enough close to home managers in the league, and I know, look, managers based on how you get on, and I get it. It's a bit different to a player, but it's the same prospect. I don't think we're showcasing enough who are actual managers and what we're bringing through. I mean, we had done the show on how expensive it is to get into coaching and get into that sort of stuff. We're barely seeing it in our top division. There's barely any actual homegrown managers kicking about.
Reagan, before we move on, Robbie, Reagan, sorry, a wee quick word about Ross County.
I mean, I think they've done pretty well this season. I think they're doing okay at the moment. I think the big priority for them is just to stay up, and I think if they do that, then they'll be pretty happy. It's not been their best season, but I think there was a stage of the season where we were thinking Ross County might get top 6 here, but it was a lot more positive than it was this time last year, and I did find it quite funny this week, if I can say so myself, that Derek Adams got relegated down in England after slagging Scottish football for so long this time last year.
What goes around comes around, as I say.
That Morecambe team 1,000 times better than Ross County. Just remember that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, The best thing
You know
about that
what?
was Derek Adams' app. Do you remember that? Did the rounds
No.
for a bit?
No,
No?
no, what was that?
There was an app that did the rounds. It was Derek Adams, and it was you win this game, what happens? And then it was his response. Obviously, it's so well known that none of you can remember it. But it was actually very, very popular for a wee while.
Oh well. Okay. Yeah. Of course, there's other apps available as well. But yeah. You need to tell me about that app. Alistair, it looks so funny.
I'll send you a link. The reason I know it's because my son built it.
All right. Oh. Well, yeah. I thought we were going to get into trouble there, but I don't think we will if it's your son. As well. Let's move on to the last game in the bottom six, Robbie. Dundee versus Motherwell.
Yeah, I mean, look, on paper, this is actually a pretty exciting game. Obviously, with everything else going on in Scottish football this weekend, it might not get all the views, but it's two teams that, looking at Dundee, their main focus is to try and stay up as well. I'm pretty certain in saying that Motherwell are going to be safe if they're beating St George's. I don't think they're going to be in doubt, to be honest, to stay up, but this is a pretty big game for especially Dundee. I'm pretty excited for this one. I think Dundee, they're such a weird team. I genuinely think that they could be higher than they are, and I only think that because it's been the main talking point the last few weeks. Simon Murray and that Dundee team has made such a difference. It's not often you're watching a goal scorer 16 goals this season and they're not higher up the league. It's a bit mad to look at. So I'm pretty excited at the prospect of this
game. Reagan, what about you? Obviously, two good teams, but two different approaches, and they'll be disappointed the two teams not to finish in the top six.
I think they'll be disappointed, especially Michael Verma, because the Motherwell fans, they're pretty hard to please. I think Showcase was doing a pretty good job until he gets sacked. And then all that story about his family and stuff like that wasn't very good. But I think Motherwell had some very good moments during the season. They obviously beat Rangers. They've done very well in the over at Hampden as well. They went 1-0 up against Rangers as well during the season. I think it'll be interesting for Motherwell to see how well they can do. I mean, it was great for them to get off to a winning start last week, 3-2 against St John's, as we spoke about earlier. But I think it'll be interesting from next season to try and judge this manager, because I think I'm right in saying Motherwell will get something like 31 first-team players at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see if the manager, who he kind of fancies and who he's going to let go and stuff like that. So, and it'll be also interesting to see where a certain Miller ends up at the end of the season, because I'm interested to know, does he stay in Scotland or does he go abroad? I don't know what you guys think about it, but I think it'd be better for Lennon Miller to go abroad, even though I did say to Michael in January that Rio Hatate would go and Celtic might buy him, but I just feel like it'll be better for the Scotland national team if he did go to abroad, because I don't know if you watch Napoli, Robbie, but I watch Napoli every game now, and it's only because of Scott McTominay. They call him Scotto McTominay. Have you seen the video on Instagram? They go Scotto. It's absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely amazing.
McTominay's a perfect example as well that shows what happened if you go abroad. If Lennon Miller gets a moved into Italy or anywhere else where it might be, it can be like McTominay. Why not? It's showing you what a player like that can do. McTominay was one that at Man United, let's be honest, the fan base completely turned against him at points. He was so low in confidence, and I think he said that himself before as well. But to go there, he's now got Napoli fighting for the title. It really does show what you can do.
I have 3 games to go and they're 3 points clear. I think they've got a better fixture list as well. I mean, Inter Milan have still got to play. I think it's you. I think it's Juventus. They've still got to play. So I think, in terms of, I think it'd be great for McTominay and obviously Billy as well to win that title in the first year, because that's good for Scottish football to recognise these players. Because of course it's great for them to play for Celtic, but I think it's great for these guys to be on the international stage as well.
I think you're right, Reagan. I think there's also, dare I say it, if you go to England, there's not many Scottish players who are making it at the top level in England at all nowadays. They're going like, Swansea, for example, the boy Wales from Kilmarnock. So to actually make it at the top level in England, I think would be really hard for them. I think it might be slightly easier in Italy because obviously they've looked at a couple of Scots. They've got Ferguson, Gilmore, and McTominay, and they're making a success of it there. So I do agree with you from that point of view. I don't think from personally going to Celtic, that might be quite good. I don't know if he's a Celtic fan or not. I've no idea.
Yeah, I think he is also.
Yes, right. Okay, so yeah, that might make him want to go there, and of course he'll win everything in sight if that's the case. He might struggle to get a game occasionally. That's the other thing. So he's really got to think about it in terms of whoever's advising him, because he's still a young boy. What's actually best for him now? My gut feel is that like you, Regan, is that's probably abroad rather than down south. If he stays here, I'm not sure he's going to actually get the challenge. In fact, I'm not sure. I'm absolutely certain he's not going to get the challenge because Celtic are so far ahead of anybody else, and I can't see anybody else behind him.
Yeah, and I think as well, he can go to, let's say, a Napoli, and he can go there and win the league, and then he can go to England. I think if you do well at Celtic, then you're sort of getting that kind of, you might go to England or you might just stay there for the rest of your time. And I kind of look at it from a player's point of view and say, right, well, if it was me playing right now, I think I'd rather go to Spain or go to Italy right now, and then end my career at Celtic, possibly.
I know it's Graham's point about ironic that Wales is going to Swansea. I always thought it was very entertaining that Mike England, the centre half, played for Wales.
I think as well, Alistair, before we move back to talk about the game, I know that you were saying about Lennon Miller, if he moves to Celtic, he might struggle, could get a game for Celtic, but I think a lot of people, I don't know about you, Reagan, because I know you're only a Celtic fan here, but I think I would put him in the same bracket as Luke McCowan.
Yeah.
Aye, but I think he would get slightly more time on the park.
What I mean by that, Reagan, is a wee bit better, but he's in that same kind of mould as McCowan.
I don't know what you mean in terms of his like Motherwell, a small club, and he's going to Celtic and stuff like that. But I think he would go straight into the starting lineup. I think that Brendan Rodgers would say that to him because I think Rio Hatate would potentially go. I think from Celtic next season to kick on, I think you're looking at Engels, McGregor, and Lennon Miller as your midfield three.
So gives a wee quick word about the game tomorrow. Dundee against Marvel, guys. As I say, Michael Wimmer as Tuchel, actually he's a bit like Valicari as well. I quite like listening to him. This guy he's got a good talker. He's a very smiley guy when you listen to him. And I think that's what Dave was making the point earlier about having a personality.
Yeah, and also the way, I can only base it on last weekend. Both teams actually didn't pass the ball around at the back too much. Both teams tried to get the ball forward and attack, which made for a much more entertaining game, unless you were at our end, of course. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Michael. I like him from that point of view. I mean, very early days in. I know that Stephen Ressley thinks highly of him. I think, I'm not sure it was Reagan or Robbie, but somebody made the point about the number of players he's got. I mean, that's, Scottish football's got
he's got 31 first-team players in the book, Alistair.
Right. I mean, there's a problem a lot of clubs have got. They've got too many players and they can't afford them. And we've got too many clubs and we've got not enough money. I mean, there's Scottish football at large. You know?
I think you're right about Vima. It was interesting listening to the show that he was on, and he's just quite as you said, Mike, he's quite a good character. He's always smiling. He's never unhappy. It's a really refreshing change in Scottish football. He loves a tea cake as well. I don't know if anybody's seen that.
I love the tea cake.
He's right at home.
He's a league grippers. He loves it. He likes the tea cake at the side of the park.
Well, they're only a few miles from Livingston, so you should be able to get enough. You know.
Yeah.
That's true, Alison.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next game in the top 6. And Dave, I'm happy that you're back now, because we're going to speak about St Mirren and Aberdeen now. So it's a local derby on the show. We've got Dave versus Robbie as well. So we'll obviously it's a home game for St Mirren tomorrow, but Aberdeen, Dave, a big couple of weeks coming up, because everybody's warming up to that Scottish Cup final.
I think you're right, Michael. I think the most important thing for Aberdeen is obviously get Europe sorted, whether it's third, fourth, fifth. Obviously, we'll have a huge part to play in it. We'll hopefully win the Scottish Cup as well. But obviously, we've not got a good record at Paisley in recent times. Am I correct in saying that, Robbie? I can't remember the last time I won. So that tells you everything. It tells you the magnitude of the task we've got at hand tomorrow. And I think we're on the right track, though. I think the last time we played St Mirren, St Mirren away from home. The last time we played St Mirren away from home, I remember we still had momentum, but I remember having a wee sneaky feeling, irrespective of the weather conditions that day, and a sneaky feeling this was going to be the end of it. I think it was 4 days after the Hibs 3-3 game, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So that was obviously the start of it. And then the 3-0 game, Pittodrie, between Aberdeen and St Mirren, well, that was abundant. And Aberdeen were just totally, they were iced. They were a different nutshell altogether. So I think we're a different proposition in this game tomorrow, and that's the most important thing. I think if we've got any aspirations of Europe, I'm not saying that we've got any divine right to go to St Mirren and win, because St Mirren out with, this might sound a bit strange, but St Mirren out with the Glasgow teams is probably one of the toughest places to go and get a result in this day and age, because of how they play, how they set up, how they are as a team. So if Aberdeen go and win at St Mirren tomorrow, it's a real statement of intent as far as I'm concerned. It's all fine and well going to Tannadice and winning, going to Hibs and winning, of course. We obviously got a good win over St Mirren last week. That would see as a statement of intent, considering where Hibs were at. But I think we're going to this in a good frame of mind, but then I'm wary. St Mirren they're not a wounded animal, but St Mirren are one of these clubs that they're very, very good at playing devil's advocate. They're very, very good at just saying, slap you, see you later.
Before we bring Robbie into fight his corner, they got a comment here from
I presume that's Graham. Hi, Graham. I want to touch on that. David Morris didn't get Aberdeen Player of the Year. Just to clarify as well, Kevin Nisbet got Player of the Year. I'll touch on Kevin Nisbet before Robbie comes in. But in terms of Shane Morris, he probably was the best player of the season. I think all round good player. I think Toby Ketton had a good second half of the season, but in terms of the first half of the season, Graham, he was probably the best player. And then if you divulge it into segments, he probably is in general the player of the season. And I'm delighted for Shane Morris. Last year, Aberdeen played Motherwell. Motherwell were 3-0 up after 20 minutes. A cold Wednesday night at Pittodrie. Neil Warnock was in charge. And Shane Morris was brought off after, I can't remember, half an hour, 35 minutes maybe. And straight back to London. Not to be seen again until pre-season. Trade pre-season, worked hard, started the season very, very well. I think he scored against East Kilbride, I think he scored against Airdrie. He earned the praises very quickly, Jimmy Tulleen. and he's just kicked off. And I'd argue without Shane Morrison's Aberdeen team, Aberdeen are they're not the same team. I'd argue that without Shane, we're not as vibrant in the final third. We're not on the front foot as much, and having Shane in the team has allowed some players in the team to either utilise positions or go into their accustomed positions, which I think has been healthy all round. I'm obviously delighted for Kevin Nisbet as well to get Players Player of the Year as well, because he's in a tough time. I don't think he's deserved it. For me, if I was in the dressing room, I've seen a couple of votes for Shinnie. I think Shinnie's had one of his best seasons in a long time this season, and I don't think he's even been at his best. And I think age needs to be taken in isolation here. But no, Shane Morris probably in general probably has been Aberdeen player of the season game.
Robbie, it's time to fight your corner. Make a case for St Mirren getting all 3 points tomorrow.
Well, I mean, it's obviously going to be a tough game, but Dave's right. The record speaks for itself. And Paisley, teams are finding it extremely hard, and Aberdeen are finding it extremely hard to come and get a result. I remember that unbeaten run going into the game and thinking, well, I mean, first thought was, is the game even going to go ahead? Because if you remember the conditions getting into that game, it was horrendous. So I didn't even think the game was going to go ahead, but we got the job done. Look, it's never an easy game against Aberdeen. I'm slightly confident knowing that, again, we don't need to play with pressure. I think that's the one thing carrying me through. This is the second of 5 games where I'm watching it going, the dress is completely off of us. We don't need to worry about what's happening. We can just go and take a go at it, which fills me with confidence. Get into the game, if we can just go and take a free hit at Aberdeen, we know what we can do against them. The worry is, again, all the sang is missing. It's always going to be the worry. I think we play different when we play Mandro and Ayunga. It might slightly match up better for Aberdeen. I think with the defence, I definitely look at the game David Pittodrie, where we won 3-0. I know it was a couple of defensive mistakes, but I thought Olasanga was fantastic that day. So it's going to be a bit of a different game than I'm used to earlier in the season, but we know it's going to be a tough game against Aberdeen. But again, I'm glad I said we're playing stress-free. There's absolutely no need to panic. I know there's been news this week of Richard Taylor getting offered silly money to go and play in Belgium. So I don't know how that deal's going to go. But I'm just, I don't want to sound too repetitive, but it's just really nice to be stress-free for the rest of the season and not to worry about relegation or anything like that.
Okay, let's move on to the last game before we get to the big games tonight in the Championship. And I said this to Robbie Alistair before we come on there. This is the first time for a long time that the Championship has overshadowed the Celtic Rangers game on Sunday. but obviously, because the league's over and obviously the league's up for grabs tonight as well. Hibs and Dundee United, Alistair, this is an interesting game as well.
Yes, I think Hibs will win because Hibs have been brilliant for months. I saw Dundee United obviously a few weeks ago when we played them at Tannadice, and the way they play, they're difficult to break down. The way they're set up. But I think Hibs have got the players who'll do that. So, and I also think Dundee United. I mean, yes, of course, everybody in the top 6, well, more or less everybody in the top 6 has got someone to play for. But I just think we're getting towards the end of the season. Hibs at home. I will be surprised if they don't win. Let's put it like that.
Robbie, what's your take on this game? Obviously, the last game it's going to be a very interesting game, but also the last time Jim Goodwin was there, your pal, we all know what happened then.
Yeah, I mean, not to matter too much about Alistair said, but I'd be shocked if Hibs don't win this game. And that's everybody going to be calling me Jim Goodwin's number 1 hater again. I can see it already. But Hibs they're just playing really well. I know Aberdeen beat them last week, and Pittodrie's a tough place to go. They've got a perfect bounce back game for that game. I think if Hibs could have picked one fixture to play, it would have been Dundee United at home after a loss. I think it is that fixture in the top 6 that they can look at and go and get 3 points. But Dundee United are going to make it tough for them. It's not going to be an easy game. Obviously, Jim Goodwin's going to get his squad back together because they did take a pretty bad beating off of Celtic, which, look, most teams in this division take pretty bad losses to Celtic, so I don't think he'll be too bothered. But it's going to be an interesting one. I think, although I do tend to agree with Alex, I think Hibs are nailed on for third. I think they'll all get the win again.
Dave, what do you think of this game?
I'll disagree to a certain extent, saying it's fair to stick on for Hibs because I'd argue if we go to sit down and win tomorrow, I'd argue it's one of the results of the season for Aberdeen, considering our results and our track record at Paisley in recent times. I thought I'd just make that point, being biased. But I think for tomorrow, I think it's a real opportunity for him to get back to winning ways. It's a real opportunity for Dundee to get back to winning ways as well. But I think there's more certainty and more stability for Hibs right now, which seems bizarre to say considering where they were at 12 months ago. But they really have turned the corner with David Gray. With Dundee, there's Lee Moult leaving, there's Declan Gallagher leaving at the end of the season. There's Sam Dalby, obviously, was asked. Jim Goodwin was asked about that in the press conference yesterday. There's a tinge of uncertainty with Dundee just now. That would be my concern. I think they've got big players still, like Sam Dalby, like Ross Docherty. But I also think there's more weaknesses in the Dundee United side right this minute in time. And that's where I think Hibs need to really go and explore that, expose that, sorry, take full advantage. So I fancy Hibs to go win this tomorrow.
Okay, so there you go. So that is the Premiership done and dusted, but we've got a big game tonight, guys. Well, big games even in the Championship, and I'm happy to say that two of the big games are on the TV. That's the first for a wee while, or maybe in history of Scottish football, they've got two games together. So let's have a look at the table. That is the table now, guys. Falkirk sitting on 70 points, 37 goal difference, and you could basically say it's given Falkirk's hands as well. Livingston 70 points, goal difference 29, and so on and so forth. All the games are quarter to 8 tonight kick off. Alice, I know you've got to go in a few minutes. Who's your favourite for coming up, and who's your favourite for making the playoffs?
Well, I think Falkirk will go up. It would take some spectacular match fixing for Livingston to overhaul that goal difference. As we know, as I may have said in the show before, that kind of thing has happened in the past. Of course, there was no match fixing at all on that occasion when Dunfermline had to win by 9 clear goals. But I think Falkirk will go up because they're the best team in the division, and I think John McGlynn should be manager of the year. I know Graham had the point there about, and a very fair point about, the certain manager and somebody else can't remember who it was, but he was right. But McGlynn, 2 successive championships, absolutely. If he wins, which I think he will, so it was good when he said, beg your pardon, thanks for the again. I think he'll win because, as you say, the goal difference is such. They'll probably both win. Who will go up? Well, who will potentially go up with them? On paper, Ayr United. I would like to see Wraith Rovers because I've got a friend who's a big Wraith Rovers fan. You know what? I don't think. Well, I think it will be the obvious. The table as it is just now will be correct. Let's put it like that. Will they then win the playoff? Very, very surprised. Whoever it is, I mean, in the unlikely event, it's Susty might have a chance, but anybody else will beat any of those teams.
Before we dive into talk about the games, Robbie had a sit down last night with our usual contributor. Alan is the Falkirk fan, and this is what he was talking about going into the game tonight.
A pretty big evening night in the Championship. First question, of course, how are you feeling ahead of it?
Man, for a while I was confident, but the last couple of losses and like other things no going our way within games, I am now beyond nervous. I'm struggling to sleep. It's a mixture of excitement, but then also the fear of just no winning and what that might mean in terms of going into the playoffs and that lack of confidence. So no, man, there's a whole mixed bag of emotions and none of them positive.
Yeah, I mean, John McGlynn was speaking, and it was very open and honest that something had changed in the mentality. Of course, we spoke to you just after you beat Morton by, I think it was 5-0, and then you were going on to play here. At that point, I don't think the confidence could have been any higher. Aaron Falkirk, I mean, what sort of changed in the last few matches?
To be honest, I wouldn't even say it changed so much in the last few matches, but this season we've had a little bit of a weakness for late goals. Big moments I remember was when Dunfermline scored a last-minute equaliser at East End Park. I was there for that. And then obviously Ayr getting I think it was 88th minute in a game we should have won. I mean, that was a good game of football, but we kind of had them. Took off Cole Donaldson and Graham came on, lost his man, and that was that. They got their point, and that alone didn't look like a dramatic result because we thought we needed the 4, and so we thought that's us got 1. We just need the 3. Still need the 3. But then obviously to have the experience against Wraith to again have the 1-0 lead going into the last spell of the game in 88th minute, I think they got their equaliser, and to score 3, that's a hammer blow. Then you just throw in what happened against Partick, and you're just seeing a pattern which we did not need.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're taking on the Hamilton side that, to be honest, I don't think they could be any lower in their confidence right now, just generally for their club, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. Livingston obviously won 3-0 against them last week. How much does that sort of send a message to Falkirk in terms of, right, we've done it against them, now it's your turn to try and step out of the plate?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've had positive results against Hamilton. I think we've also had a mixed one where they drew 2 each with the comeback at New Douglas Park. It's a difficult game to call because before it looked like Hamilton were going to be comfortable, so they were playing for nothing. Then they've got this massive deduction, so they were effectively relegated, playing for nothing. Now there's a possibility that at some point tonight, I've not seen if it's been announced yet, but there's a possibility that they could get the points deduction reduced enough just to make the game competitive, so they're fighting against relegation. So that's added a whole different dynamic to the game. Is until maybe 9 o'clock tonight or something, we won't really know what Hamilton we're going to be facing, and it might not be the same Hamilton who thought they were relegated last week against Livy. So that's going to be a challenge. But I think what we showed against Partick, not so much the second half, but we'll create chances against any team. We'll create chances, and the biggest issue we've had is being more clinical to bury them. And I think Hamilton have got their own stuff going on. We know we can create chances to beat them. So I think that's what we've got to cling on to.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of players, then ahead of tomorrow, obviously the last time we spoke, all eyes were on Arfield, but someone like Calvin Miller as well. I know he was speaking to the press during the week. I think how much is it important that players like not just Arfield but the rest of the attack really set the tempo for this game? Because Falkirk are not going to want to start slow. That's the last thing you probably want to start. You want to get out and get in Hamilton's faces, create chances, try and get an early goal, especially while the Livingston game's going on. So how important is it that all these sort of players, and especially the more experienced players, sort of step out of the plate in that manner?
Absolutely, and that's where your league winners like Arfield are going to come in. But I say league winners like Arfield, we've all got the experience of winning League One last year. So there's a lot of league winners in that squad, and I think ultimately the motivation, there's loads of different pieces of motivation, and guys like Calvin Miller, who have been the talisman this season, Arfield's been scoring goals for fun since he came back. So these guys, you want your big goal scorers to step up, but what you also know is that every player on that pitch has an opportunity to write themselves into recent Falkirk history. If it's McKeever that steps up and scores, if it's Ross that gets the goal, whoever scores the goal to get, because ultimately whoever scores, if we go up 1-0, say within 5 minutes, whoever gets that goal will have started a party, because that will just make the fans go absolutely ecstatic. Obviously, games can be topsy-turvy and you might concede one or whatever, but as soon as if we were to get a goal, the momentum could well put Hamilton to the sword. but you need to get that goal. You need someone to step up, and I think guys like Calvin Miller, it's written for him to do so. It's written for Arfield, but you've also got all the guys who've, for instance, we've been talking all season about how we've not really got that 15 goal a season striker, and it's having to be guys like Arfield and guys like Miller and the likes to bring up the goal tally. So this is maybe a moment for them to go, I am a contender for next season. I can score in the big moments, because bloody hell, every moment tomorrow is going to be a big moment.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms then, I don't want to speak too soon the result, but if it does go negatively and the worst case scenario is playoffs, how important, how do you think you'll cope in the playoffs just finally? Because, it can be a really, really nervous time getting into the playoffs, and especially after having such a big lead. I mean, how do you think the players would cope with that as well as the manager?
I think it would be one of these things you would just have to cope out of necessity. So if that's the case, if that's the way it ends, there'll be a massive, massive deflation, given the size of the gap, which I think was 11 points at one point, and just especially so recently, having been on 3 points away from winning the league for the last few games. So there will be a massive drop off. I do have belief that I have belief that we can get through the playoffs, but I also know how difficult that will be to pick ourselves back up. The only thing I know is that even though you might look at the table and look at how the gap's sort of been clawed back over the last couple of weeks, I've not really seen, apart from a wee bit the second half, but it was different against 10 men Partick. I've not seen a Falkirk who didn't play the Falkirk way, or didn't play the McGlynn way. I've seen a team who keep creating chances, just can't put them away. So if we do end up in the playoffs, I mean, that's where we are. It's still, in the context of it, it should be viewed as a positive season. And I think we do have the quality to get out of it. But as you know, your confidence would be hit, and it would be demoralising and gutting to fall away for the title. So it's a big, big ask to get yourself back up for it.
Yeah, well, Alan, all I need to say is good luck for tomorrow, mate. I hope it goes in your favour, and I hope you're out partying all weekend, because you would have deserved it after that season.
Oh man! So we've got so just the party starts at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Behind the wall, there's the Falkirk fan podcast, Falkirk Daffer Pitting on a night. I think there's you and Cameron and a couple of the guy for the view for the terrace. So that party's going to start at 5. Buses to the game, I think, are 6:45, and then that'll be it. Christ, aye, pray for us all. Cheers, man.
No problem.
I was a bit worried there when Alan was talking about behind the wall. I was going to say, well, what party are you going to? It's behind the wall, because I want to come to it as well. So we're going to come back and talk about tonight's games in a minute. But let's get the Livingston point of view. Today, the Reagan spoke to Livingston. Well, he's not a Livingston fan. He goes along to the games as Mikey, and this is what his take is about tonight's game against Packet Thistle.
Hi guys, it's Regan here again, part of your friendly locker room team, and I'm joined by Mikey, a regular on the team. Mikey, I've not seen you for a while. Have you been hiding?
Well, surprisingly not. Just been very, very busy with a few things, but obviously very happy to be back on, yeah.
Hi, Mikey. Well, there's only one place we can start, because tonight on the locker room we're doing a championship special, and that means that there's a big title race on. Many weeks ago, Mikey, we didn't think we'd be happening. We thought Falkirk were going to go right over the finishing line and win the title, but fair play to your team and David Martindale for getting over the line and making it a tight one in the last day of the championship season.
Yeah, I think that that the last few weeks have been a real surprise. I think across the entire championship, it looks as though Falkirk have seemingly lost their way a little bit, just in terms of their performances on the whole. They've really dropped off. Obviously, Partick Thistle away, they looked quite disappointing in my opinion. And Livy have done the sort of opposite. They've kind of gone the other way, and that's been basically the story at the end of the season. And I don't think if you were to ask anyone a few weeks ago whether that would be the reality. I don't think anyone would have seen it coming, but obviously here we are, and it should be a very interesting final day.
I'm just going to ask you, Mikey, in terms of what do you make of the job David Martindale's done? Because in terms of a few weeks ago, it was like 9 points behind, and now it's 3 points in it. A big match against Partick Thistle tonight. I mean, Partick Thistle themselves need to win or draw the match because they're in a 2-horse race with Rafe Rovers to get in that playoff spot as well.
Yeah, we do kind of, I guess, well, we might have sort of forgotten about it at times that Partick Thistle are in a very important battle for themselves. You know, if they get playoffs, then they could be in a very decent situation to go up. You know, they've kind of had nothing to play for a while now. Obviously, they've kind of been dragged back into it, but for a lot of the season, it looked as though they kind of coasted into 4th place, and that's really not helped them. But I think going away to a Livingston team that has everything to fight for is a hugely difficult final game for them to have. Obviously, Rafe Rovers are travelling to Queen's Park, which kind of, you'd say they have the advantage there. But I think it just adds an extra edge to the game tonight that Partick Thistle themselves have a lot to play for, and that's why I think that going into the game tonight, it really is all or nothing for obviously Falkirk. But the Livingston game for me is the most important game in the championship because you've got two separate areas of the table which are very sort of hotly contested at the moment, and this game will have major implications for both, I think.
Yeah, Mikey, it's going to be like the old times where people are going to be checking their radios and checking their phones and seeing what's happening. Yeah,
I think it will be. I think that it's going to be certainly the first time in my time watching football. I haven't really seen this at all, really. I think that obviously with the team that I support, Hibs, last season, you kind of had it with the Motherwell game. It was you were trying to keep up with certain things as well, but I think for this game for Livingston, it's certainly a new thing for the fan base and something that I'll be very excited to sort of be in attendance to. It will be a very interesting one, and it's really the first time in a while we've seen it. It's maybe not the most exclusive thing in the championship. You do see it every once in a while, but I think that it's the first time that I've certainly seen it personally happening.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back, Mikey, I mean, if you look at what Falkirk have done, it's been incredible. But I think if you'd have said to any Livingston fan that Falkirk would lose back-to-back matches, they would have laughed at you. But I mean, there's a big chance for David Martindale's team tonight.
Yes, certainly. I think that if you look at Falkirk over the last few weeks, it almost seems as though the pressure is getting to them a little bit. I think that when Livy lost to Dunfermline back at the sort of start of April, even David Martindale himself kind of wrote off the title, but I don't think anyone could have really seen it coming down to level points going into the final day. And I think you could say that's testament to Livingston. Obviously, they've kept the pressure on, they've won when they had to. But if Falkirk don't win the league now, they'll see it as a huge missed opportunity. And I think that whoever goes into the playoff place, I think that if Livingston go into the playoff place, they'll be very hungry to come up still. But I think if Falkirk fall into that playoff place, they could be in real trouble of losing quite early on because, as we've seen in the past, momentum's a huge thing going into playoff games. And if Falkirk let the sort of 9 to 12 point gap slip and drop into the playoffs, I don't see them coming up. So I think, from my perspective, I think there's a lot more pressure on Falkirk's side going into the final day.
The only thing I would say on Falkirk, I would say it's a favourable fixture for them because Hamilton Accies have got that points tally being took off them by the SPFL, and obviously Hamilton are not really playing that well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton, they don't have anything to play for now. They've been very sort of downbeat in the last couple of weeks. They drew with Queen's Park in a game that you kind of expect that they, in a normal scenario, they would have won based off of their sort of recent form, Queen's Park, over the last couple of months. And then you look at their game against Livingston last week, where they didn't really raise a glove to them at all. So I think that Falkirk have got a very favourable fixture out of the two. But you never know. Hamilton, they might be sort of looking for, maybe not, they might just want to be going out on a high because they need momentum going into next season. It's crucially important that they get some sort of feel-good factor around them, since there's been so much negativity lately. So I think for Hamilton, there will be that incentive there, but I think Falkirk, they're fighting for a lot more. And the thing that could maybe play into Livingston's favour in that sense is that Hamilton don't have anything to play for. They're completely sort of worry-free. If they lose, then it doesn't really mean anything. The implications for Falkirk not winning could be huge tonight. So I think that it will be a very competitive game, but I do think that Falkirk are going into, as I said, with a lot more pressure than Livingston are.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, in terms of the two teams, Falkirk and Livingston, I think Livingston would be better prepared for the playoffs, because I think if you look at Livy, they've played really well this season, even though they've finished second in the table.
Yeah, I agree. I think Livingston have been sort of unfortunate in the sense that Falkirk have been so good, because most seasons 70 points would win you the championship, but I think looking at the season Livy have had sort of silly drop points here and there, 0-0 draws, 1-0 draws, stuff like that have really hindered them at times. But if you look at their loss record, I think they've only lost 3 or 4 games all season, which is obviously that's a very, very good record to have. So yeah, Livingston have been relatively consistent in terms of not losing games, but I think Falkirk have, when they're sort of up against it, the thing that's really put them in a situation where they were going to win the title was the 3 points they were picking up when they were maybe not at the best, or maybe weren't playing how they should be. I think for Livingston sometimes they let that slip a little bit, but yeah, I think going into the last game, both teams, whoever doesn't win the title now will have every right to feel quite hard done by, because I think most seasons, the seasons that they both have would have normally been good enough to get them over the line to a title.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey, and I think it's great as well that the television and radio companies are showcasing the match tonight as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it gives a good sort of insight into Scottish football, the lower leagues. I think it shines a good light on it as well, because I think more neutrals will be watching it. I think there will be people who wouldn't normally have an interest in Scottish football tuning into it, and that's only a positive for the Scottish game. So I'm very much happy to see that they're both getting televised at the same time, and I do really appreciate the effort that the BBC have put into this championship this season, because I think the overall coverage of the league has been very solid, and I don't think it's been too biased towards certain teams. I think there's been a good spread of teams shown across the season, so I have to take my hat off to the BBC. They've done a very good job this season.
Who do you think would be better equipped to go up? David Martindale's side or Falkirk? I think for me, if you look at Falkirk as well, they've actually went away to Hearts and done very well against Hearts. They played well against Celtic. I was at that game. They were 2-1 up with 20 minutes to go. But also, David Martindale's team have put in some very good showings as well this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that both teams will need to strengthen in the summer if they're to sustainably survive in a Premiership campaign, because I think if you're looking at the Livingston squad from this season compared to last, there is sort of a downgrade in certain positions. They've lost some of their key players from last season, and I think if they were to go up with the current squad they've got and were to try and compete with the current squad they've got, they wouldn't be able to survive. So I think that both teams will need to put maybe not significant investment in, but they'll need to bring in new faces, which obviously whoever goes up will. I think that Falkirk have still got a very good team from League One that was too good for League One, a good championship squad, but I don't know if they'd be able to sustainably survive in a Premiership campaign. I think that Livingston on the whole have got more Premiership established players. So I think if you're to put one into the Premiership right now, who I would back to finish higher, I would say Livingston, based off the squad quality that they've got, the Premiership standard players that they've got, the players that have done it, been there and done that in the Premiership. I think Falkirk have got players like Ethan Ross, Calvin Miller, who would be very solid Premiership players, but they haven't established themselves at that level. So I think Livingston are probably favourites to go into it as more of a Premiership side. But as I said, I think both teams would need to strengthen if they were to feasibly survive in a Premiership campaign.
And I've got 2 questions left, Mikey. I'm expecting a big crowd at both venues tonight.
Well, Livingston, you never really know, but I think that Falkirk will be very much close to packed out. I have heard that Livingston have brought good numbers, which is obviously good. I haven't really seen Livingston have a great attendance at any of the games I've been at for them, but I think that it's going to be very interesting. I think that it's going to bring in a lot of neutrals from the Livingston area. A lot of the people in Livingston having lived here my entire life. You know, there's so many people you see who are Rangers, Celtic, Hibs and Hearts fans. Obviously, me being one of them. And I think it has really captured the imagination of a lot of them, and I think a lot of them will be in attendance tonight. And you know that'll be a good thing just for the game tonight. Get behind the team and hopefully see Livingston back in the Premiership, because it's a town that I think benefits a lot more by having Livingston in the Premiership. I think that having Livingston in the Championship does sort of turn a lot of potential fans away to some of the quote unquote bigger clubs in the country. So I think it's vitally important for Livingston to try and get back up and try and grow the fan base again, because if you look a few years ago, Livingston did bring in very good numbers. Well, not very good, but they brought in decent numbers for the level they were at during when they were sort of battling for top six. So I think if they go back up, it'll only be a benefit to the town as a whole.
Yeah, and just finally, Mike, I've got to ask you a prediction for both matches. First of all, we'll go with Falkirk versus the Ackies.
As much as I think that the pressure's on Falkirk, I can't look past them for tonight. I think that it's one of those where if they get an early goal, it could be quite maybe a bit of an anti-climax in terms of title battle. So I'm going to go 4-0 Falkirk, unfortunately. I think that Hamilton, I think they're going to be very downbeat, especially after yesterday. And I think if they concede early, it could be a really long day for them.
Yeah, and in terms of the match that you're going to be at, Mikey, what are you thinking for that game? Do you think it'll be a tasty one? Obviously, Partick Thistle need to get into the playoffs. Brian Graham and Mark Wilson are working wonders there. So,
yeah, I think that it'll be a very tight game. I think that Livingston will win 2-1. But as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Partick Thistle get something out of it. It's a game that's vitally important for them. And obviously, with the Falkirk result, the game in Livingston actually becomes more important on the Partick Thistle side than it does for Livingston, because Livingston obviously needing Falkirk to draw or lose. If they win, then they've won the title. So I think if Falkirk get the early goal and possibly 2-0 going into half time, I think that Livingston maybe drop off a little bit. Partick Thistle might grow into the game. But I think if you take the two squad qualities into account, and obviously the momentum that you need going into playoffs, I think the Livingston will win the game 2-1. But I think it'll be a very, very interesting and very close game.
Mikey, thank you very much for joining me.
There we go. That was Mikey talking about the games tonight. Still joined by Dave and Robbie as well. We have got the team news. We're going to give you that in a wee minute or two. Run through the championship game first. Airdrie against Ayr, Falkirk against Hamilton, Morton against Fairman, Livingston against Partick Thistle, and Queen's Park against Braes Rovers. All the games are quarter kickoffs. And we can go over to Robbie now, because he's got the team news at the Falkirk game.
Yeah, so Falkirk is Hogarth, Henderson, Spencer, Oliver, Adams, Tate, Graham, Ross, Mackay, Miller and Arfield. On the bench, it's Monroe, McCann, Lang, Thompson, McIver, Nisbet, Adriman, Stewart and Brophy.
There you go. That's the team.
Did Agumado get sent off last week? Did Agumado get sent off last week?
I think so. I think I remember saying that. I think it got rescinded though. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, no, I think John McGring was talking about that at his press conference yesterday, Dave, and I think he did get that rescinded as well.
It's still coming up as sent half, but Falkirk have put on a team sheet that he is on the bench. So,
well, apparently the ref. It's the first time I've heard about this, Dave, as well. But apparently, when the ref sent his report to the SFA, he basically said that he made a mistake.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the first time I felt that, and if that continues, honest in football would be better as well. But what about these games tonight, guys? Obviously, well done to the BBC for covering the two games at the one time. Obviously not on the one channel, obviously. Looking forward to the games, guys, tonight, and obviously we're back on at 10 o'clock as well.
Yeah, sorry.
On you go.
On you go. No, on you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. That just goes to show you how lazy I was, because I did realise 2 days ago that the red card was rescinded, as you say, Michael. I think it's a big night in the Championship. I think it's disappointing for the integrity of the league that we've got Hamilton who haven't had their appeal overturned. That, let's be honest, Hamilton will play for personal pride, professional pride, but ultimately Falkirk have all the incentive behind them tonight. This is effectively a dead rubber for Hamilton. They've got nothing to play for tonight. So for the integrity of Scottish football, disappointing. Irrespective, I think Falkirk, as Alistair's touched upon, as Robbie's touched on it as well, I think Falkirk have been the best team in the league this season. And it would be befitting if they were to go on home soil tonight, put up a vintage performance and get the job done. Livingston, on the other hand, they've got a tougher assignment at home to Partick Thistle. A Partick side who are obviously buoyant after, obviously, they went over the Bears last Friday night. Livingston are coming, I think, irrespective. I think, in terms of the playoffs, I think Martindale has Livingston better prepared for the playoffs than Falkirk would. If Falkirk lost tonight, I think it would have a huge psychological effect on the club. I think if Livingston didn't get promotion tonight, I think playoff-wise, it would be a case of taking your medicine and going again.
Robbie?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was speaking to Alan, obviously, about off camera as well, and I think he made it very clear how nervous he actually is for this game. And I know that, like, I know what Mikey was saying. See, when you're sitting in the stadium, and I've been through it some earlier in the season, when you're sitting checking other scores, it is not the nicest feeling in the world. So I can only imagine how anxious someone like Alan's going to be feeling at the game tonight. But we've got a couple of crackers on the card. I mean, look, you're right there. Hamilton have absolutely nothing to play for. So all roads lead to Falkirk lifting the title tonight. Saying that, Falkirk, and as Alan said, there seems to be a bit of an issue in the finishing department tonight. They're able to create these chances in games, but they're not able to finish. So that's going to be the biggest test of their character tonight. I think you're right. I think if Falkirk end up being the unlucky ones that fall into a playoff by the end of tonight, I honestly don't see how they're going to get through it mentally. As much as it's alright for Alan to say, "Oh, you just need to go on with it," it's not that easy. The players will take it hard, and so will John McGlynn. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. Livingston, David Martindale's been pretty confident during the week, speaking. There's no pressure on us, and there's not. This is a situation Martindale would have admitted 2 months ago he was never going to be in, to be honest. So for that Livingston team, they can go again. They can play with no stress and no fear, knowing that if they finish second, I think Dave's right, they are better suited to the playoffs. So tonight, it is really all on Falkirk. It's down to whether they can get it over the line. They've tried so many times and failed, but tonight needs to be the night for John McGlynn.
I think, Dave, like, if Falkirk win the league and all that tonight, the fans won't care how they go over the line. But do you think that there'll be a bit of disappointment there, because like the league from Falkirk should have been won weeks ago?
Oh, they effectively could have wrapped up last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. But winning leagues and having success in football is not straightforward. The only thing I would have to caveat just what we've mentioned here is how are Hamilton for tonight? What's their motivation? Is John Rankin going to be meeting the players at the hotel before the game tonight and going, look, everybody's been against us. The bookies have got us written off. Everybody's got us written off because everybody thinks we've got nothing to play for. Or is Hamilton going to lie down? And this is basically going to be the beginning of the end. It's an interesting question. But I think for Falkirk, they actually played well the opening 35 minutes, and that goes under the radar considering how they blew the game away at Firhill last week. But I think if they can really manage the game, like they'll have seasoned campaigners in the team, and I think that could be influential for Falkirk tonight.
Sorry, what I will say about Hamilton especially is, maybe not the players, and they might not put in a good performance and they might not take it as hard, but these fans want to see something. This is a Hamilton team that I know can from getting into League One. They're not even playing in their own stadium. This is a chance tonight for the Hamilton players and especially the manager to go out and put on a show for these fans and tell them that next season we are going to come back stronger, because all roads right now seem to be leading downwards for Hamilton. They seem to be, since they get relegated, they're going on a downward spiral. News just keeps getting worse and worse. I'm a bit fearful what might happen to Hamilton in the future. So tonight the incentive for Hamilton will be go out and put on a show for the fans that are travelling. I don't know how many are going to make the journey to Falkirk, but whoever is there, go and put on a show. Saying that, on Partick Thistle side, they obviously have a bit more to play for as well against Livingston, going for the playoff spot. So I think Mikey's right. That for me is the game that means a lot more to both clubs. Livingston, if they win, again, it all depends on what Falkirk do, but we know Partick Thistle have that playoff ambition. So tonight is a pretty big night all around. Two really cracking games, and as Reagan and Mikey touched on, really good about the TV showing both games.
Now, obviously going back to Falkirk in a minute, guys, but I mean, Dave, I said to you last week, obviously, last night actually, Hamilton lost the appeal, and I think everybody knew that before the hearing started. But it's interesting for me because obviously, the digging, obviously they lost their club. They lost 15 points, so obviously that's enough to relegate them, right? But we don't really know the real meaning behind that. Like, why did they lose the points? And the SFA or Hamilton hasn't come out with a kind of real explanation, because surely there's got to be more than that, Dave.
Yeah, God knows what the players will be going through. I'd imagine, well, John Rankin touched on it himself, didn't he? About how he tries to go shopping and tries to go to the gym. Is always distracted about is this 15 points deduction. So it's not ideal at all. No.
Robbie, and also as well the Jock Brown, the kind of Aki's chairman. I don't know if you read his statement last night, but it was all. I didn't go into much kind of detail of it. Obviously, it was like 2 or 3 lines, and like that was it. But I take it if you were a Hamilton Accies supporter reading that statement, you would be a bit kind of like disappointed.
Before Robbie comes in, Hamilton are prohibited from saying too much on the matter, to be honest with you, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, as well though, I just feel like the last couple of seasons, especially again since they get relegated, there's been a bit of a disconnect between the fans and either the manager, the players, the board. That just everything at Hamilton right now, as I mentioned before, is just gone downwards, and it's not nice to see. I never want to see a club doing bad. I never want to see a club going through this type of trouble. It's not nice. But it's happened to Hamilton, and to be honest, it's been happening for a few seasons now. And I just wonder where the final straw is or the final nail is going to be put in the coffin on Hamilton. Unfortunately, it's as much as it's not nice to say, it's the truth. It's something that is a very serious situation that they're going through right now. Saying that on the flip side, you've got as we were talking about Falkirk there, you've got. Don't know if I just saw the Alan's message in the group chat, but he's going through all the emotions tonight. I mentioned that last night as well. He's going through quite a high emotion, so I can only imagine how someone like him is feeling ahead of this tonight. Because last night when we were speaking, Alan didn't know the result of the Hamilton case. We didn't hear about it at the time, so Alan didn't really know what type of Hamilton side he was going to be facing. Now we do know it's going to be a Hamilton team that are deflated and well gone now. So this puts even bigger pressure on Falkirk, I think, because yes, you're not going to be facing a try to escape relegation Hamilton, but what you are up against is everybody's got their eyes on you to go and do the job. You are the team that you need to go and win, or it's going to be a tough couple of weeks in the playoffs.
Let's have a look at the managers, Dave. Obviously, John McGlynn was talking yesterday about the game. He says we need to be on the front foot, take the game to Hamilton, and we need to get an early goal. And I think that early goal will basically calm everybody down, like the team, the manager, and the supporters as well. And Aaron, I don't know if he's actually going to the game tonight. I don't know if he is going to the game. Yeah. Well, he might run on the park after the game when they win. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, I think in both of the games, Dave, like the Falkirk Hamilton game, but also Livingston Packet Thistle game, that the first goal is going to be crucial in these games.
Oh, come on, Michael! For goodness' sake, you missed out the best quote that John McGlynn gave, and that was, "You're either going to be in a Beaver or Falkirk on Monday morning." That's basically it. Yeah, win tonight, you're in a Beaver. Lose tonight, you're in Falkirk on Monday morning. I know where I'd rather be. I know where if been us on this call would be on Monday, but I think Falkirk need to have a fast start to tonight's game. And then it's important to go and manage it. You'd like to think they would have a lot more experience in comparison to Hamilton. I know Hamilton have some seasons compares like Ricky Lammy, like Regan Tumulty, like Ollie Shaw, but you'd like to think Falkirk would also have players that can really go and graft when they have to. And I think Livingston will be exactly the same. And I think for David Martindale, he's really been excellent at what he's done as well. Nobody really expected Livingston to even be in the playoffs this season externally. Maybe internally, maybe a promotion challenge, maybe we're hoping for, but nobody expected Livingston to really go and hit the wooden on the door with regards to promotion this season. And it's all down to Martindale and how a lot of people forget this. They basically started from scratch and really worked their way into having a really good, tried and trusted championship team again. And that was pinnacle because Livingston maybe lost their identity a little bit last season. But now they're back, and I can understand why they're in the periphery of the Premiership perhaps now.
Robbie, the last couple of weeks on the show, we've been talking about the manager of the year, and I think I'm going to add another one into the mix as David Martindale, because everybody writes off Livingston every season, and apparently he does everything, every job at Livingston apart from making the tea as well. But I think he is Mr. Livingston as well. So you know, obviously John McGlynn is in the running for the manager of the year. But do you think that you would put Martindale up there, because as Dave said, that nobody was expecting Livingston to be up there challenging this season? But I mean, if they still make the playoffs, it's going to be a massive achievement.
Yeah, and let's remember as well, Livingston have won a trophy, you know, it might only be the Champions Cup, but it counts. He's guided them to a piece of silver there, so he's got the potential to do a double by the end of tonight. So, I mean, of course he should be in for the shout. I gave my pick on the show a few weeks ago to John McGlynn, because I thought by now he would have had the title wrapped up. That's obviously not the case. But I don't see why Martindale shouldn't be in the run for it, to be honest with you. Obviously, you've got the favourites in the job, you know, you've got the Rodgers for potential win the trebles, that sort of stuff. But you can't underestimate what Martindale's done the last few years for Livingston. You know, this is a guy that's, you know, had his experiences off the pitch, whatever, and you know, any club might have not taken a punt on him. You know, he might have never get back up to this level in management, and he might have never been here. But Livingston, you know, they've taken a chance on him. He's basically as Livingston at this point. You know, he lives and breathes the club, and I'm sure he'd love nothing more than to see them go back to the Premiership. And I think even if they don't win the league tonight, and look, it's a far stretch, it's still asking for a lot. It happened, and like David Martindale, that's the one thing I'd be saying to the players tonight. You know, we were never favourites for this. You know, it was never going to. I don't want to say it was never going to happen, but it was always unlikely to happen. You know, but we just need to go in the playoffs and go and show that we're still going to go up this season. And if today, it's full credit to him.
Dave, I don't know if you remember, years ago, it was Helicopter Sunday, they called it, between Celtic and Rangers. Obviously, Scott McDonald scored the double against Celtic, and ironically, he signed for Celtic in that season. But do you think it'll be Helicopter Friday night?
Well, apparently there's a car in Bathgate tonight. Apparently, I don't think there's a helicopter arranged by SPFL. I think it's a car in Bathgate. Apparently, so I think you've seen it a few seasons ago, Michael. Remember with the Women's League.
Yeah, Ibrox. Yep.
Well, yeah, Celtic were 4-5 up against Hearts, and then Glasgow City scored in the 92nd minute. And I know, having obviously seen a bit of content from other broadcasters, that they were pretty much just making their way to Celtic Park, and then Fiona McIntyre at the STMPL got a text saying Glasgow City have scored. So I don't think it'll be as. Apparently, there was a situation last year as well, because obviously Celtic won the league last year by beating Hibs 1-0, and what was it? Rangers were winning against somebody. I think it was Hearts. Like, the Rangers were beating Hearts, and the car was actually on its way to Broadway at the time, and then obviously they turned back for Celtic Park. I don't think we'll see that tonight. I think Falkirk will be comfortable enough, but yeah, could be a potential busy night for the taxi come 9:25. That's for sure.
But
Yeah,
you know,
sorry, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, Dave. Sorry. Were you not working at that game at Ibrox? I seem to remember that you were at Ibrox that day.
I wouldn't say working, but I was there in a media capacity. Yes.
Robbie.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I was listening to Neil Doncaster earlier. It's called Fast Car Friday now, so that's what we can expect tonight. So I agree with Dave. I think it's going to be easy done by Falkirk. I think they will just be partying. It is crucial though when that first goal comes. The longer this game goes on, the more the Falkirk fans start to become a bit nervy and getting a bit in the players' back. So I think the first 20 minutes are really crucial in this game. Falkirk need to start fast, need to start aggressive, need to try and get an early goal. And as Alan said, as soon as the first goal goes in, it's party time.
Dave, I know that me and you spoke about during down the years on the show about talking up Scottish football, and a lot of people outside Scottish football, I'm talking about our neighbours down south, think Scottish football is a Mickey Mouse league. But I mean, if you look at the entertainment that we've got on tonight, I wouldn't say Scottish football's a dull place to play your football.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I've got a good product here that just, I think, needs a bit of TLC. I think we just need, I think we need a bit more structure to our game. The league reconstruction can play a huge part in that. I think we need to be getting more young talent into our game. I think it's a conversation for another day, guys, but I think the national team will bear the repercussions of that in the next several years. I think, yeah, in terms of entertainment, in terms of product on the park, we're not far off. I'm not saying we're England standard, but we're never going to be England standard. Let's be honest. But then you look at our game here in Scotland, we're renowned for passion, and we do it in a rather unique way that isn't even matched by similar countries across Europe in particular now.
Let's have a look at David Martindale's comment, Robbie. He was speaking to the media on Wednesday, so he must have had somewhere to go yesterday. He said, I feel that there's a chance, but it's still in Falkirk's hands, but we need to win our game. Do you think it's a bit of mind games from David Martindale there?
I think a wee bit, aye, and you know what, David Martindale's probably the master at playing mind games on managers, and look, the thing is though, he's no wrong. It's simple. They win their game and it puts all the pressure on Falkirk. Martindale knows inside, and he admitted it a few months ago, that he thought the league would be over. He didn't even think Livingston would be in with a chance for second. I remember he said that after one of the night games, I think it was, I can't remember, it was one of the games Livingston won. They were speaking after the game and they said, look, I'm not keeping tabs on Falkirk because I know that it's very unlikely we're even going to be in with a shout of this league. So we're just focused now on the rest of the season, and if it's going to be playoffs, it's going to be playoffs. I don't think he would have thought to be in this situation, but they are, and all they need to do is just go and win. It's going to be a tough game for them against, a Partick Thistle team that, again, they are in the hunt for the playoffs. So it'll not be easy for Livingston, but what you can expect is if they get a job done, it's, again, as I said, all the pressure goes straight onto Falkirk.
Dave, you've got to give BBC credit, because I think this is the first game in history, I might be wrong here, but I think this is the first game in history that there's 2 Scottish games on at the one time on the TV.
Yeah. There's not been any. There's maybe been cup games. What I would say, Michael.
Yeah, but
What I would say.
not at the exact same time. Like kicking off at the same time and all that.
Yeah. What I would say is, I know it's it's not relevant, but I know the women's game have done it before. I know they've obviously done a game like BBC Alba, and then they've done a game with BBC Sports Scotland before, or they've done BBC iPlayer, or they've done it along the BBC corridor. So it can be done, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at moving forward. I think depending on finance, depending on structure, I think it's something that can happen, not just the Championship, but Warwick's going forward as well. I know obviously BBC don't have the contractual rights to obviously the Premiership here in the country, but yeah, I think it's something that can be done moving forward. I think you can have a situation where you're going a game at 7:45 on a Friday or 5:30 on a Saturday, what we've been seeing with League One, for example. I think the BBC's coverage, I know BBC sometimes gets a bit of stick, understandably so, but I think what they've done for the lower leagues of Scottish football in the last few years has been remarkable. Obviously, they've covered Championship to a really good standard. Some games have been a bit by the by in terms of the coverage, but and they've also covered League One in terms of BBC Alba as well, which has been really, really good as well. So, no, I think it's been very positive all round.
I think it has been positive, guys. It's great to be back on again. I didn't realise you guys were still on, but 20:07. But great to hear you guys again. But I'm just about seeing you guys a bit more than my family these days. But I mean, it's great that the matches are on TV, and I'm looking forward to the tournament. Don't forget to join me and Robbie at 10 p.m. tonight, Robbie. Yeah?
Aye, it'll be a good show after all the games tonight. Obviously looking back on them, what I will say on the BBC as well is I know Mikey was crediting them earlier, and they're showing 4 games across different leagues this weekend alone. You know, you've got the 2 tonight, then you've got the 2 women's games as well, which include the Edinburgh Derby. So again, a fantastic job for BBC. As Mikey said, they've been really balanced this season. I think they've showed a lot of good games, and again, as Regan said, we'll be live from 10 p.m. tonight to look back on all the action.
I suppose that they're a good company to, I would have to say that, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it's good for the game, Dave, as well, and hopefully it continues maybe to mid-season as well. But I think both sets of players would know the score every 2 minutes because the fans would be keeping them up to date, Dave. So that's going to be exciting as well.
I think it will be exciting. I don't know where David went to. I know he will hear him.
I'm on mute, pardon me. Sorry. What I was saying is, yeah, they will, you're right, but that shouldn't and it wouldn't be the mentality of the players involved in Falkirk and Livingston. Livingston know what they have to do. They need to rely on Falkirk stepping up. And Falkirk primarily have one simple task, and that's winning games. And that's winning the game. So they'll get an inkling from the crowd, but I don't think it'll be the mentality. I think the focus will be playing the football, try to get their win, and then see where it goes come 10 o'clock tonight.
There you go. So that is where the league lies at the moment. Obviously, Falkirk's are way out in head and the goal difference, but that could maybe change when Robbie and Regan comes on at 10 o'clock. Thanks for watching the show. It's been a very, very busy show. Thanks to Dave. Thanks to Robbie, Regan, Alistair, who else have I missed? Alan and Mikey as well for the interviews. And we'll be back at 10 o'clock.
Michael, I see Robbie's. Yeah. I see Robbie's asked for a prediction there for the match.
Oh yeah, okay, yes, I forgot about that. Dave, what's your prediction?
I think Falkirk will win 3-0, and I think Livingston 2-1.
Robbie?
I'm going to go Falkirk 5-0, and I'll go Livingston to win 2-0.
I'll go.
Regan?
What? Do you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say that at the Tony Macaroni, I'm going to say that Partick Thistle win 2-1 because Partick Thistle need to win the playoff. It's not just a case of Partick Thistle turning up there in their best level, wanting like the end of the season. Partick Thistle need to go there and win for Brian Graham, for Mark Wilson as well, for their futures as well, and for the playoffs. So I'm going to say 2-1 to Partick Thistle, and I'm going to say 4-0 to Falkirk.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so remember, I'll be back here at 10 o'clock, guys, to catch Robbie and Reagan, the 2 R's on a Friday night. That was hard for me to say. Just because where my teeth is in the right way up there. So we'll see you at 10 o'clock, and we'll be back on Sunday as well. Enjoy the games.
The Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live